Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today we are finally going to be getting a look at the NVIDIA RTX 2070 benchmarked at ultra-wide 3440 by 1440 resolution for all of you 21:9 users out there, or would-be 21:9 users out there who might want to pick up one of these cards that are both hovering around the $500 price point each. Now, I said back when we did the 2070 video that we were going to do this, so keep my promise, as we've now got FrameRater 2.0 all set up and ready for this video. But first, I want to mention that this video is being sponsored by scdkey.com, who are currently running their big Halloween sale from October 25th all the way until November 10th, where you can save up to 86% off of all of the games and software that they have over there. And if you use my code SK01 at checkout, you can get an additional 3% off of your games, or SK02 for 10% off of any software you pick up over there. So please check out the link down in the description below. Now, as I said at the top of this video, the reason I'm testing the 2070 versus the Vega 64 is because of how competitively priced they are, and because of the numbers that we saw on these cards when I tested on traditional 16:9 resolutions, where they were very close, very neck and neck. NVIDIA won some games, AMD won some others, but mostly the 2070 did edge out the Vega 64 in my testing at 16:9, so we're going to see if that carries over here today in this video. But on the terms of the pricing, I mean, if we look over on newegg.com, you could see that there are some 2070 variants. Even though the Founders cards are selling for like $600, there are some variants for $500 that do have aftermarket cooling, like the one from EVGA here, or the one from MSI. And when it comes to Vega 64, there are not as many at $500 or less. There are a couple though, like they have the reference design here. There's one from Sapphire, which is just a reference model selling for $450, and that does come with a game bundle, which includes a few games with it. So yeah, you do have those options there at least. And I remember when the 2070 first launched, there were definitely more options from Vega 64. Maybe this was a response, to those cards being so close to the 2070. Maybe people went and gobbled up what stock was available on Vega, but there will very likely be cards again in stock in the future. I mean, you can see they do have a Gigabyte 64 card here for $480, so just under $500. So they are still very competitively priced when the cards are priced correctly on the Vega 64 side, and certainly some of the 2070s you could pick up for $500 right now at the time of me making this video. If you want to link to a few of them over on Newegg, I'll have them down in the description below. Now, I don't want to waste too much more time before we get into the benchmarking on these two cards at ultra-wide resolution, but first I do want to explain the test setup and methodology that I was using for all of the benchmarks you'll be seeing in this video, as well as the follow-up video where I'm going to post all of the benchmark footage in just a long, like 10+ minute video of all the benchmarks side by side. So if you want to see that video, I'll link a card up here once it goes live, and you can go check out that footage if you want to, but we'll definitely be taking a look at some of that here today, and then also, of course, going over the average FPS and the 1% lows. Now, back to the test system. If you recently saw the build that I did, my new test build, it's FrameRater 2.0. So in there, I'm rocking the latest from Intel, the i9-9900K, which I have overclocked to 5 gigahertz at 1.25 volts. And I'm also running 16 gigabytes of G.Skill Trident Z RAM at 3200 megahertz. And when it comes to the NVIDIA and AMD card, I am running the latest driver for each of them. So for NVIDIA, that's 416.64, and for AMD, it was 18.10.2. But with all of that out of the way, now we could take a look at some of the side-by-side comparisons here between some of these games. There were some that I did want to highlight because the vast majority here, actually like 9 out of the 10 games that I tested, the RTX 2070 was running better than the Vega 64, and also forgot to mention both of these cards were running at their stock clock speeds, but I did have the power limit increased on the cards all the way to the right in MSI Afterburner. The one game that actually ended up edging out the 2070 for RX Vega 64 was the recently released Forza Horizon 4, which is a DirectX 12 game, so I wasn't too surprised that it was running better on the AMD card, but there were other DX12 games that I tested here, as well as another Windows Store title like Gears of War 4, where it was the complete opposite when it came to those games. But Forza Horizon 4 definitely seemed to be a lot better optimized for RX Vega 64. Going over to Gears of War 4, you can see here it was running much better on the 2070, and both of these, as I said, are DirectX 12 games running off of the Windows Store, and two very different scenarios. And there would definitely be one more game that AMD would likely win in, and that one would be Black Ops 4. However, I didn't have it included in this testing because for some reason, ever since I built the new system, that is the only game that I cannot get to run properly. As soon as I try to load into a match, it instantly crashes the application for Call of Duty Black Ops 4. But based on the testing that I was doing before that, I have no reason to doubt that Vega would very likely win out when it comes to that very specific title. I'll go ahead and throw up the average FPS right now, and then we will get into the 1% lows where you could see what I was saying holding up true, and all of the games here were benchmarked at the high preset in all of the games that I tested here. And you could see that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, definitely being won by the 2070, the Vega 64 is really going to struggle there with an average down below 60 FPS, but even the 2070 is going to have dips down below 60, at the ultra-wide resolution, even at high settings, because ultra-wide is just a little bit more taxing. It's kind of somewhere right in between 1440p and 4K, so it definitely requires a little bit more horsepower to be able to drive the ultra-wide resolution. Gears of War 4, as I had mentioned, was running much better on the 2070 versus Vega 64. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was very close, but both of these cards are hovering right around 60. So if you're wanting to play that at ultra-wide with one of these cards, you're probably going to see some drops down below that, which would probably make a good case for Vega 64, only because of the fact that FreeSync monitors are a few $100s cheaper in most cases than G-Sync monitors. So that could be a reason to lean towards Vega 64, even though it's falling behind the frames in most of these games here. It would be cheaper in the long run paired up with a FreeSync display. Strange Brigade, that went to the RTX 2070. Forza Horizon 4, as I mentioned, the only game that Vega 64 won at 105 FPS to 95, and you can see the rest of the numbers up there. I'm not going to go through them in too much detail, but Far Cry 5 was also another one that was very, very close, just like Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And I'll go ahead and put up the 1% lows now, where all of the information we just went over is pretty much echoed. Forza Horizon 4 being the only game that ran better on Vega 64 when it came to ultra-wide resolution, 3440 by 1440, at high settings. So that's all the data that we have to go over here for this video when it comes to the ultra-wide benchmarks on the RTX 2070 and the Vega 64 card. I do look forward to the discussion down below the video if you were thinking about picking up maybe one of these cards to pair up with an ultra-wide monitor, especially after seeing these numbers. Has it, kind of helped to sway your decision one way or the other? I will still stand by what I was just saying previously, that I think when it comes to at least, the bargain between, when you have to consider FreeSync and G-Sync, I think you can make a very compelling case for Vega 64, but there's no doubt about it, the games are running at higher frame rates on the RTX 2070, and they do seem to be more available right now at a better price. So the 2070 seems to be in most cases besides the reference model Vega 64, but again, that can change once they get more stock in on Newegg and other websites. You might be able to find a good aftermarket card on other e-tailers out there for maybe $450 to $500, in which case Vega 64 is going to look a lot better. This is just based on what they have in stock right now on one website that I was taking a look at. So that could definitely change in the future, but, over the last year or so since Vega launched, they've had a lot of trouble keeping those cards in stock at what the MSRPs should actually be, and since the mining craze has kind of died down now, there's definitely more of them than there were maybe 6 months ago, and you could probably find some used ones on eBay. However, when it comes to the Vega cards, I would be extremely cautious about picking up the cards on eBay, only because of the fact that they have a very high likelihood that they could have been used for mining at some point, and that could have possibly degraded the silicon on those cards a little bit. So yeah, you're kind of taking a risk there a little bit if you're picking up a used Vega 64, unless you're buying it from a very reputable seller, or maybe you know a friend with a Vega 64 that wants to sell their card so they can upgrade. So yeah, kind of a lot of things to take into consideration, but hopefully at least the numbers that you got to see here in this video could maybe help you a little bit more in terms of your purchase decision. So let me know down in the comments below you know, which way you're going to go on this, or which way you would go hypothetically if you were going to pick up one of these cards for ultra wide resolution. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. As I said at the start of the video, if you just want to see the raw benchmark footage, I will have that going up on the channel tomorrow, so that'll be going up in full ultra wide resolution, just like this video right here. So be sure to check back for that video. Make sure you subscribe or ring the notification bell, and then you'll know the moment that it goes live on the channel. And I'll see you then for that video. Well, I won't really see you, it's just going to be benchmark footage, but you'll see the video. I'll be there in spirit, okay? Bye-bye. Ta-da.